Warning, this podcast contains spoilers for the Season 3 finale of The Mandalorian on Disney+. Hello, my name is Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Rosie Knight.
And welcome to X-Ray Vision, the crooked podcast where we dive deep into your favorite shows, movies, comics, and pop culture.
In this episode, in the Airlock, we're recapping the Season 3 finale of The Mandalorian. And what a finale it was, with our lovely friend Jason Mantzoukas.
Yes.
In the Hive Mind, more Mantzoukas for Comics Corner, where we talk about all the books we have been reading, what we can't wait for, and what you should be reading. And in Nerd Out, it's a Star Wars pitch from listener Marcus.
Up next, the Airlock. We're stepping out of the airlock and into a galaxy far, far away to discuss the Mandalorian Season 3 finale alongside friend of the pod, Jason Mantzoukas, co-host of How Did This Get Made? Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thrilled to be here. Guys, this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is
the way it should be done all the time.
This is the way.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Season 3, Episode 8, Chapter 24, The Return, directed by Rick Famuyiwa, written by Jon Favreau. We pick up right after the events of the previous episode. First off, on behalf of X-Ray Vision, I would like to apologize to Axe Woves, who is not a spy, and also whose jetpack can absolutely get him into orbit up to the spacecraft, which...
Canon?
Crazy. We just only a few episodes ago saw the Mandalorians in the covert run out of gas chasing
Thank you.
bird.
How did Paz Vizsla manage to run out of gas, but Axe Woves can fly into space?
Yeah. Axe Woves can basically has a hyperdrive on his back. I don't know what's going on. My guy's up in the atmosphere, and the rest of the covert couldn't even chase the bird when it captured Ragnar.
And it had eaten many children at that point. It's stolen more than one child. So this axe, you could have been more useful.
I think I have two possible theories. One is that Axe and his crew, they kept it tight. They were active mercenaries. They were working out in the world, doing stuff for cash. And they had to be ready for game time in a way that Paz and the rest of them rednecking around by Crocodile Lake were not. And then the second theory is that Paz is just a deadbeat dad who was just irresponsible, number one. And you can see that by the fact that he didn't have his jetpack gassed up. And then number two, I kind of think that the reason that he was like, you know what, I'm going to hold off the Dark Troopers, you guys get out of here, is just he didn't want to raise his kid.
Wow.
Bleak.
I mean, that is brutal. That is a brutal take on our guy Paz Vizsla.
He sacrificed himself to 3 Praetorian guards to save the Mandalorians, but you say it's because he didn't want to pay child support.
Not even a word for his son. Not even a tell my son about
Tell Ragnar I love him.
Tell Ragnar I love him and tell him what a hero he's just like,
he's like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'll take him. You guys get out of here.
There has been some wild. Did you guys also feel like I got so pregnant with the idea that Axe Woves was a spy?
I did as well. Yes.
We were invested.
That I had a hard time believing he was saving the day, which unquestionably he was doing.
Unquestionably.
He is a hero on Mandalore, and the entire time I was like, this fucking guy.
Yeah, I was like, getting all the Mandalorians to leave the ship. That's suspicious.
Exactly.
And the way the captain of the ship gives him a double take look,
yes!
Really? Is
As
this
he
what we're doing?
walks out.
I was like, here it comes. Here it comes with Axe Woves, shoots them all in the back, and it just never happens. It just never happened. Axe Woves, stand-up guy to the end. My apologies.
We're going to hand out a lot of apologies.
Absolutely.
Apologies.
I will say, unfortunately, we are going to hand out a lot of apologies because, boy, would I have loved for one of these things to have been proven true. For one of these people to have been duplicitous.
Yes. Back on the planet, Bo is leading the survivors out of Moff Gideon's base. She radios to the very, very loyal Axe Woves before he's cut off by the atmosphere to say, hey, okay, use the capital ship as a decoy, get all the warriors off the ships and down to the surface. I'll talk to you later. Then she has to use a thermal detonator to collapse the tunnel because the Dark Trooper armor is really, really good. Back somewhere else in the base, Din breaks free from his captive. You got to have more guys on Din.
Truly, this is an absolute strategical mistake. Do you have Mandalorian armor? Guess who knows how to use it better? A Mandalorian. Like every time. Yeah. And also, he has a force-sensitive baby whose midichlorians are so strong. You were trying to steal them.
And Moff, what are you saving him for? You got so many guys.
And you got a baby. So what do you need? You don't need
two more guys on Din.
I was also confused throughout, both last week, at the end of last week, and this week. I couldn't believe Moff Gideon was not intrigued or interested at all that Grogu was there. Like, the dude spent the first entire season chasing Grogu for his blood. They bring Grogu to his cloning base. Yes. He doesn't even, he's full on playing hard to get. He's ignoring Grogu.
Not even like a you again. Like just like, and it now is it's a Grogu in a mech. So this is like not an easy thing to just ignore.
Yeah, like how is there not a scene where Moff Gideon is like, is that Grogu in a mech?
You put that baby in a Gundam suit?
I would love it. I would love it if Werner Herzog came in and was like, I would like to see the mech, baby.
Let me see the mech.
Let me see the mech, baby.
So Din takes out these Dark Troopers, and then Grogu arrives to kind of save the day when Din is about to get choked out and then shot in the head. Comes up, says, no, crushes the pistol. And then, what is he spraying on his dad? Is that like fire extinguisher fluid or Bacta?
I assume it was Bacta.
Yeah, I thought it was Bacta as well.
I think he
the same way that IG-11 did.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think he did it because there was heat and fire. But it was definitely Bacta. And it was really funny because Din's like, please stop.
And then,
but it was also sweet because Grogu was trying to rescue his dad, and his dad's like, I'm okay. I'm
good. I'm fine.
I should, at this point, apologize for bringing you into an active war zone, my child. Is Ragnar here? No.
But then Din says, Grogu, I'm going to need you to be brave for me. Because if we don't take out Moff Gideon, this will never end. Are you with me? And of course, baby Grogu is like, yes. And I just love that Din is like, listen, we got to murder this guy.
Yeah, Din's like, are you with me, my child? My small baby that can't talk?
We got to fucking kill
this guy. You're going to kill him? And the baby's like, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. You're going to have to be brave, Grogu, because today we murder.
Yes, it's going to happen now. Din then radios Bo with the update. He and the baby are going to kill Moff Gideon. Bo and the fighters escape to the surface. They head to one of the Night Owl's hideouts. And it is at that moment that the TIE forces, the TIE fighters and the bombers, scream into the sky to attack the capital ship. Din radios R5. He's like, I need you, buddy. We need you to scomp. Did anybody track this?
I wrote it down. I wrote it in my notes. I was like,
a new verb?
What?
We're going to need you to scomp into the base and get me the location of Moff Gideon's command center.
Is scomping what we call when the droids do their little jetpacks and fly places? I'm like, is that specifically
a droid word?
Interesting. That might be true. I took it to mean like hack. I'm going to need you to hack.
The little
hack into the system and blah, blah, blah. Whatever he said. I can't remember what he said to do. But, that's what I assumed it was. But it's such a weird word.
It's so good. Also, like, I feel like we still have never tapped in, decades later, to the absolute amount of gadgets that our units have.
It's fantastic.
They just always have what you need, whether it's a tiny little hand to electrocute something, a hacking thing. It's almost like being a Green Lantern. You have infinite willpower.
And shouts to R5 for having the appropriate amount of gas in his jet boosters.
He's not making that mistake.
Like Daddy Visla. So R5, using his little jets, he floats down from the surface to the base and begins looking for the nearest data port that he can use to scomp into the system, if that is the correct way to use it.
I like it.
Axe gets through the clouds. He makes it to the ships. he tells all the Mandalorians, okay, get out of here.
Suspicious.
Head to the drop ship.
Just saying, suspicious.
I will pilot the capital ship. And there's all these really cool like scenes of the Mandalorians like skidding onto the ramp of a ship.
I just want to say as well, I feel like they were looking at a lot of 80s Iron Man comics.
Yeah,
because
cool.
while these Mandalorians are flying, there is so much time that it looks like Iron Man armor.
I wondered if they used like Iron Man assets, you know?
That's
from
what I had the same thought. Yes.
I bet you they did.
Yeah.
Right? They had to have. It's just so much easier.
And it's so clean.
Yeah.
Like, this does not look rushed. This looks like you literally are seeing tens of people flying through space.
I think
and they
these
don't
very
have a lot
recognizable
of
suits.
flying.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of flying from past seasons. That's a brand new thing. So, but they have a ton of metal suited character flying through the air. So yeah, I'm sure
in a
some
very
of this is
similar
borrowed.
position to that kind of Superman.
I bet you it's Iron Man 3 assets. From
like
the
that.
end fight where Tony is fighting like all the suits.
Oh my gosh, and there's multiple
Yeah.
Iron Mans.
We cracked it, guys. We cracked it.
We did. We figured it out.
That is true facts. Canon absolutely happened.
So the Mandalorians are heading towards the planet, and just then the TIE fighters come up and they start attacking the ship. Where Axe Woves is heroically piloting the ship without any kind of ulterior motive.
Big Holdo energy. He's going to do it. He's going to crash it.
He is absolutely loyal to the cause. And again, I'm so sorry, Axe Woves, that I ever done.
Honestly, Axe Woves, thank you for your service.
Really?
Look,
really?
we apologize, but I would like to put the blame for us suspecting you very directly on whoever chose to name the last episode The Spies. Just saying.
Yes.
Wait, so I guess let's talk about this. So what were the spies then? R5 and G68?
I wonder if
Was
the
that-
spies are like the Imperial remnant
Yeah.
who are still, you know, the Zoom call?
Oh, okay.
The Imperial Zoom call? I wonder if it was them.
I don't know. I think it's, I mean, it doesn't add up because only because I feel like we all have spent so much time theorizing and trying to figure it out, and came up with we owe also an apology to the Night Owls.
Yes.
Yes, very true. Very
who
true.
were also
Sorry to those
pinned
owls.
as, oh, well, don't they know exactly what trap to bring everybody into? And aren't they, you know,
Apologize
everybody's
to
like,
the armorer.
Yeah.
She
And
was
also
up
the
there.
also the armor.
She
Oh, yeah.
literally committed her whole life to rebuilding the Mandalorians, and we were like, oh, guess who knows how to make Beskar armor?
Yeah,
That would
yes.
be useful for Gideon. Oh.
guess who's selling out our people? The armor. And but I will say once again, and listen, I love this show. This is like one of my
it's such a
all-time
joy.
favorites. I love this show. But I would have liked for one of these things to be true
It would've
because
been
I would
fun.
have liked one more layer of double crosses or all that kind of just surprises. That's what I was looking for.
And make it the Night Owls, I say, because Axe, I get it. Like he's almost too suspicious. The Night Owls, we just met these guys. That's fine.
Yeah.
Also, as well, you would have had a definite narrative satisfaction to show how Axe was really heroic, and then pull the rug from underneath you and go, oh, actually, it was them.
It would have been fun, but that's okay. Back at the base, there's some really classic Star Wars stuff happening now. You got Din and Grogu sneaking around an Imperial base. It's just like the old days. You have an R unit hacking in, guiding them along the way. They come to this the tunnel that we saw Moff Gideon emerge from when he went to go take that Zoom call, which is protected by a series of laser shields, which R5 needs to open one at a time. And it's the fight that unfurls here, where Din has to be like, okay, now open the next gate, where and then he's going to fight two Dark Troopers there, and then open the next one. He's going to fight two Dark Troopers. Very reminiscent of the Jin Obi-Wan Maul duel from the Phantom Menace, at least the visual, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like
using those shields,
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like the Reds, I feel like this again is feeling very Last Jedi. I feel like there was a lot of Last Jedi echoes here with obviously the Praetorian Guards and everything, but the Reds and the kind of like, you got to fight a couple of droids in this very dynamic, a couple of troopers in this very dynamic way. I was a fan of this fight. It was a cool idea.
It was cool.
I liked a lot of the fights.
Yeah.
I liked
they
a
were
lot
good.
of this episode I thought had good a good variety of fights. You know, big sky, like dogfight stuff, practical on the ground, hand to hand. The Bo-Katan fight with the Darksaber and whatever Moff Gideon's staff is called. I'm not sure. But, you know, I really liked the variety of stuff that this episode had.
And everybody got to whoop a little ass. Like, whenever we went back to the armorer in the sky, just molly-whopping dark troopers, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And one more thing.
I love that the armorer is never like, you know what? For this,
hammer and
give me
tongs.
A blaster.
No,
it's just like, nope,
it's not
give
happening.
Give me the barbecue tools, and I'm going to town.
It's also nice that they built up this idea of these partially Mandalorian armored troopers, and then actually showed us them using their Mandalorian armor and Mandalorian weapons. That could have been very easy to skip over, but we really got that in Din with like the little lassos that shot out and everything. That was very fun.
Oh yeah, and Moff Gideon had like the rockets that shoot out of his,
the classic style,
the Whispering Angels or whatever. Not Whispering Angels. Oh my God! Please, that's the rosé. That's the rosé. Please make it those. What were they called?
Oh yeah, what were they?
Whispering birds?
The Whispering Birds, right? Yeah, Whispering Bird.
Yeah.
Something like that. Man, I wish it was called Whispering Angels, and they just had like a delightful little sip of rosé that came along with them.
Meanwhile, R5 has to escape a gang of mouse droids who are
loved that moment,
getting in his face because he's hacking into
the system. They had like police sirens.
Yeah. I like that. Like the one came up and he shocked him, and then the others came up and he was just like,
"I need backup."
And he just flew up, scomped away.
Inside the command center, Din and Grogu find all of Gideon's clones. He's been cloning himself, apparently to give himself, or versions of himself, the Force.
Yes, he really wants the Force. He's
one of them
obsession.
Gives poor baby Grogu a mighty scare.
And this classic eye-opening scare. Looking at something in a tank, boom.
And so Din is like, fuck these clones. They all got to die. And he just kills them all.
How dare you scare my
son? The Night Owls then lead, who again, hearty apologies to them.
Sorry.
Then lead Bo.
Can I interrupt you? I'm so sorry, Jason.
Please.
I have a question, only because I feel like this beat where we see the Moff Gideon's clone process, all of the tanks are full of Moff Gideon clones.
Right.
And so I feel like this is a real change from what I have thought we've been building towards all this time, which is Moff Gideon wanted Grogu's blood so that he could participate in the making of Snoke and then ultimately a Force-sensitive Palpatine. But this seems to say, no, that is not the case. He was using Pershing to use Grogu's blood to make Force-sensitive Moff Gideons.
I think that's right.
True.
Yeah.
I do not think it takes away from, it's just a little bit of a diversion. I believe that the people who are Project Necromancer, who he has been hiding this from, will inevitably find out he did this and the technology will be used.
It just pushes it back a little. I think it just pushes it back a little. They're going to take all this and then use it to make
I think
Snoke
that is, that feels right. And I also say on that Zoom call, they kind of get in Moff Gideon's ass for like using Pershing for stuff that is not related to Snoke and later on Palpatine. It feels like, because like you took Pershing and you were doing all this weird stuff.
And he's like, I don't even like cloning. That's your thing.
Yeah, I'm not. You're the crazy clone guy. I'm not the clone guy.
After he just walked through a room of cloning tanks, he's like, what cloning? What are you talking about?
My favorite thing about this is like, I get it. It is almost too big to just immediately commit to kind of retconning and expanding on the sequel trilogies as we thought it was going to most directly do. But it is actually a very hilarious motivation when you really think about it. It's just some guy who was like, well, I just want some Force-sensitive clone versions of myself to make an army of me's. And everyone's like, well, this doesn't have anything to do with Palpatine. And he's like, just some Force-sensitive Moff Gideon.
Can I ask one more question? Obviously, like his plan was to create an army of clones. Are all the guys in the Dark Trooper him? Like all the Dark Trooper dudes Moff Gideon?
I mean, you mean non-Force sensitive Moff
Gideon?
Yeah,
non-Force sensitive.
Like
he's successful.
Like beta.
He's succeeded in making clones, but they're just regular clones.
Right. These are the beta clones, non-Force versions.
That would be interesting. My guess is they're just stormtroopers who are loyal to him.
Okay.
Although he does mention, well, what I was surprised by, is that he said this is the new evolution of the Dark Trooper.
Right.
And the Dark Troopers were robots, right? They were droids, rather.
Yeah.
But these are definitely people in suits, for
yeah, these
sure.
are guys, for sure. A lot to think about, and it is funny that you bring it up, Jason, because he directly says, "Well, you're the one obsessed with
cloning.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Hold on."
and now it emerges that you are just cloning yourself.
It's like a classic neg.
Yeah, right.
He's
It's
full-blown
classic.
negging.
Yeah.
He's negging the Shadow Council.
It's great. So the Night Owls lead Bo and the Warriors to these garden caves that they've been living in. Beautiful, teeming with plant life. And again, we're sorry to them. These guys have been living in caves, eating moss, and we have been doubting them.
On a non-poison
And I'm still like,
Mandalore.
how's this going to go bad?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, this cave looks really small. Hard to fight your way out of there when they inevitably turn on you.
So the armorer radios in, and she's like, okay, guess what? The cavalry's here. We're here. Let's do this. And Bo's like, let's take back our planet. Love it. They all scream for Moff Gideon's base, and then we get this delirious airborne battle that may or may not be taken from assets from Iron Man 3. And I have to say, I'm sitting here watching this, and it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Looks amazing. All like the armor swinging away, like Bo with the darksaber out. We've never actually seen anything like this in Star Wars. Like jetpack to jetpack battling, certainly not in live action, not at this scale. Yeah, not at this scale.
This definitely makes me believe, we were talking about the likelihood of which Star Wars projects would go on to become real. That this sequence and the amount that they committed to the armor and the Iron Man 3 assets makes me think that Allegedly, the Dave Filoni wrap up of this live action kind of Mandoverse, Ahsokaverse, this really upped my expectation of it actually making it to the big screen.
Oh, I'm on board for that 100%.
Yeah, I would love to see
imagine a big, huge dogfight, space battle, or sky battle between ships and Mandalorians in the sky.
Landing on the ship.
Put Sabine Wren in there. Let's go. Put the Ghost in there. Let's go. Come on.
I'd love to see it.
So Din and Grogu find Gideon, and Gideon is whining about his fucking clothes.
My clothes! He doesn't care about, by the way.
My clothes! My fucking clothes! You smothered them before they could take their first breath. Shut up.
No one cares, bro.
I have one geography question here. So Din and Grogu, they get the location to the command center. They go through the laser-guarded hallway to get to it, and then they find Gideon standing on what is basically, we later find out, right? Because as the fight unfolds, Bo looks down and sees them fighting. And they end up like on the spaceport, on the side of the chasm. It's open to the air. Why did we have to
Why didn't Din just fly down with his little
Fully agree.
Is that like
maybe he'd run out of gas?
I fully agree. The other thing there's a little bit of confusion there too, which is they get the information from R5. We got to find Moff Gideon's office.
Right.
Great, bing, here it is. We're on our way. They go through the gates, everything. Moff Gideon, we've seen in his office. He looks at a thing where Grogu and the Mandalorian, who have individual dots on the thing, one
blue
red,
and
one
green. Yeah, beautiful.
I love that they have the ability to have a green and a red dot on screen moving exactly when they move, but there's no video surveillance in the entire base.
Yes, that's one of the best, funniest things.
Moff Gideon leaves his, he's like, don't worry, I'll deal with them.
He
leaves his office.
Where's the office, guys? Anyway.
Which part is the actual office?
So then we get this big fight between Moff Gideon and Din, and I have to hand it to Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon can ball, man. Moff Gideon gives Din everything he can handle, and then is like so confident that he just throws Din over to the Praetorians and is like, you take it. I'm not even going to get my sweat up because I can so easily kick this guy's ass.
Yeah, I mean, the suit definitely has hydraulics in it or something, right? Like, it's an extreme version of anything that we've seen before.
I felt like they purposefully put in like these servo engines. The sounds of his suit is like has more strength than just he does.
Yes.
It's not him powering the suit. It's the suit has power of its own. That's why he's so easily able to wipe the floor with Din Djarin and Bo-Katan, unfortunately.
And Grogu, of course, cannot stand the sight of his dad about to get executed by these Praetorians, which is when Grogu cries, it is visceral and it hits me so deeply.
Give that Foley artist some serious money.
It's unbelievable. I just find myself being like, how do they make this sound? How do they
Why
make
does
his
it speak
eyes so
to, like,
wet?
a place inside you, a feral protective place?
That puppet
Well, then
is amazing.
it does trigger a response in me, which is, oh no, why is he here?
Yeah, why is he here?
Every time. I also feel
It's-
like we are going to cover that in even more extent. The end of this leaves me with more questions about Din's parenting skills. But yeah, why is he there?
Because they have to take him off Gideon. He said it.
Just leave the baby in the armorer's
He can handle
Placid
himself.
hideout.
He's worth too much money. He can handle himself. So
Send him up to the ship with the traitor, Axe Woves.
Yes! In a little baby Bjorn. Axe will look after him.
So Grogu tries to intervene, but then the Praetorians are like, oh, this guy's washed. Let's kill the baby first because we can come back to this.
Yeah.
And they pursue Grogu, who is recoiling and afraid, and it is so heart-wrenching, to like this side room. And now Din, seeing this happen, is like, oh my God, like, no, this can't happen. Gideon is shooting him in the back. He's lassoing him around the neck. And as all of this is happening, Din is powerless to watch the blast doors close with the 3 Praetorians in there with his little baby son. But Grogu, again, maybe I wouldn't do it this way, but maybe Din knows what he's doing. Grogu can handle himself. He flips out of the IG mech, which is getting cut to pieces.
I also love that they were like, throughout this season, we were like, well, we need a counter for how many times this baby flips. Because they are like
Beautiful
establishing that the baby can flip. And when it got to this episode where he flipped himself onto like the lighting rig, I was like, oh, that's why they kept reminding us he could flip.
He can flip, baby.
They
So
got they've got it's Control Option F.
Yeah.
And it just inserts a flip.
meanwhile, Bo, who is fighting up in the, all the dark troopers up in the sky, looks down, sees Moff Gideon down there fighting Din, and is like, oh, there's Moff Gideon's office. And she flies down to join the fray. Now it's Gideon versus Bo. And again, you have to say it, have to hand it to Gideon. Nobody can take him. He then wipes the floor with Bo. And all I have to say is the Mandalorians need to study what Moff Gideon did with the armor.
This is what I'm saying. Out of all of the technology, look, we know that this technology is going to end up in the Imperial hands and we're going to get somehow Palpatine returned. But what I want to know is, why didn't anyone take the technology of this suit? Because we have never seen anything like this in Star Wars
Maybe
since.
it's against their religion to augment the strength with the suit.
Yeah, but like the Imperials,
But why
anyone.
isn't Finn wearing one of these?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Why aren't the
First Order
stormtroopers of the new order? What is
First
that?
Order.
Yeah.
First order. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. The first. Why aren't the first? It's not the band New Order.
That's what I'm thinking.
Why was Captain Phasma so easy to take down?
She seems like a prime example because this suit is very Phasma evocative.
So in the side room now, because Bo is taking
The
on
side office.
the side office because Bo is getting her ass whooped by Moff Gideon. Din and Grogu team up to stomp out the Praetorians. Grogu's force abilities are really, really evolved now. Also, he's quite nimble.
Yes, he does
as we
lots
see.
of good Kermit the Frog Muppet
running across the lighting fixtures
Also,
there.
okay, so I want to ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
His force is evolved, but I'm guessing, what do you think? He doesn't choke anyone out. He used to be a
He's just
lover of
throwing
a force
people
choker.
around.
Now he's kind of moving people with the force. Do you think that's because he studied with the Jedi, like he learned not to use the dark
I think they were
side?
like, yeah, that's dark material. Please
Don't
don't
do
do
it.
lightning and chokes. Please don't do lightning or chokes.
Because he
that's
used to
dark
be a
material.
powerful force choker.
Yeah.
Well, he was I felt like in the past he was operating from just instinct.
Yeah.
He was operating just from emotion, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
He was just, things were happening around him and he was just reactive. But now he spent, what did Favreau say? That 2 years?
Yeah.
He was with Luke for 2 years or something like that.
So he's harnessed the force.
So he's done he's done more. And what we get out of it is he can move stuff with the force and flip.
And do cool running, like little Muppet running.
Yeah. Oh my God. The little
Oh my
Kermit, the little Kermit feet were really great.
It makes me so happy when I see a puppet with legs.
I know, I absolutely love it. So they take out the Praetorians and then go to...
Great. By the way, love seeing the Praetorians.
It was really cool.
Very
Love
exciting.
seeing-
And can absolutely handle themselves.
One of the best contemporary Star Wars
Yes.
visualizations and creations. They're really scary, and their weapons are so cool.
They're really, really cool.
And
So-
also a great evolution of a something that in the old movies was just,
they're just standing
isn't
there.
it cool?
Yep.
Those
Yeah.
guys are red.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that neat? What a great! I had the figurine. What a great!
Yeah,
what a
same.
great! What a great Kenner figurine or whatever I had.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
the Boba
boom.
Fett. It looks like a cool design, but what does it do?
Yeah. And then in Last Jedi, they come in and are just so. That scene is
That
maybe my
visualization.
favorite.
It's
Oh,
one of
that's
my
amazing.
all-time favorite Star Wars
One of
scenes.
my yeah.
It's such a great contemporary reintroduction. And to get to see them here again and showcase that brutality and that fight is just so good.
I wonder if the ornamental nature of the Praetorians in the original trilogy isn't just because Palpatine was such a badass he didn't really need him. It was like, just get me any guy.
Well, he
put
was
him in
he
a red
was
suit.
so powerful
Yeah.
with the Force. Like nobody even knew that he was up to
Like,
his
do you need a
shenanigans.
bodyguard? Like, I don't think. Who's
Please.
getting into this room anyway? So then they go to help Bo. Moff Gideon, fighting Bo, has her at his mercy, crushes the Darksaber in his mighty armored up hand, which is, here's a thousands of years old artifact, one of the most important objects in Star Wars history. I think you could fairly say legendary
and
item.
one of the most powerful artifacts
It's just-
in the
is it-
canon.
They gotta fix it, right?
I'm like, was it a fake? Did she shoot
No,
that?
it can't be, because it was. It
I
had
also-
it had the heaviness to it. It had that
and it's
wonkiness to it that
bow.
it's got to be
But
real.
it was almost like he crushed the blade, which I just can't sort of comprehend how he'd even be able to do it.
I was surprised again because I felt like the story had been telling me he wants this blade back bad.
Yes.
Right, he wants it.
It meant something to him that he had it. It meant something to him that he wanted it back, and that it seemed so easy for him to just crush it and be like, the Darksaber is broken. You know?
It's so true because if we think about it, he kept talking in the last episode about how he wanted to be the leader of
Yeah,
Mandalore.
give me the Darksaber.
Give me the
and I'll-
Darksaber.
and
I
tell the
can lead
Mandalorians to follow me.
Mandalore. I've made these nightmare Mandalore Iron Man suits. So like, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
That was
and he just crushed it.
yeah.
He's like,
That
no.
that was until his favorite clones got trashed, got thrown
Okay,
in the trash.
I like it. This is a temper tantrum.
Okay, yes.
He's smashing his toys.
I mean, the way he says "my clones," he's like so mad about it. He
And
really
what's
is mad about
interesting
it.
is Jedi, I feel like throughout their history, are constantly losing, breaking
Yeah.
lightsabers all the time, and then are having to go and remake a new one, get another kyber crystal,
Yeah.
you know, build their lightsaber, and so that you get all these different lightsabers that different people are carrying. But it seems as though the legend of the Darksaber is this is the one.
That's the one.
Highlander rule. There can
Yeah.
be only one.
Yeah, this is the single one that's been going for, I don't know, thousands of years.
Thousands.
It's a
Thousands of years.
Vizsla, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's yeah, okay.
But you might be onto something actually, because a lot of what we've talked about with this show is how we feel like with Grogu and Din, it's this idea of like the Jedi and the Mandalorian coming together and these two schools of thought. Maybe because Bo's always kind of been a rebel, maybe we will see her go on a journey to rebuild the Darksaber
I think that would be
and
cool.
create
I
a
hope that
new
happens.
version or a new iteration.
I think so. Just because it's cool.
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's
cool
cool,
as
and
hell.
I think they didn't do anything to. In breaking it, they didn't do anything to me that didn't feel like, oh, it can be repaired,
Yeah.
and it still has meaning.
And you still have like the handle.
Yeah.
So you got something to go on from the
Yeah.
original.
So the Darksaber's gone. Bo's helmetless. Moff Gideon punches her across the room. Meanwhile, Axe Woves is radioing in, and he's like, guys, I'm about to 9/11 the base. Okay, I'm coming in hot. There's flames coming from this capital ship. I'm aiming it straight at the base. So now there's a clock ticking on this little fight here.
Also, can I ask you, is that the ship that at least 25,000 people spent
Painting.
a ton of paint on, painting that
a billion,
bloody...
500
mythosaur.
million gallons of paint.
Is it that? And he just
I think it
destroyed
is.
yeah.
it. Do not tell anyone who 3 generations of their family spent painting that.
I think it's
Yeah, it took 30 years to
Literally.
paint.
Really?
Just to once again drill down on the giant painted
It was huge.
It's an
mythosaur
important
on the bottom of the ship
point.
is it also makes it impossible to use that ship covertly.
Yes, you always know who's coming.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody's
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
oh, that's
even-
an Imperial ship.
You can't sneak in anywhere. It's like, oh, it's the Imperial. Oh, wait. No, it's the Mandalorian.
No, it's the Mandalorian. Look at the big
Somebody
sign on
had
them.
like force sensitivity that was letting them know the future, and they were like, "Oh, the ship's only going to last like 2 weeks after we finish painting it, so let's just go ham."
So Moff Gideon said, after crushing the Darksaber, Mandalorians are weak once they lose their trinkets. And Bo says, no, Mandalorians are stronger together, and here comes Din and Grogu to help out. But, I mean, I gotta say it again, even they, all together, are really struggling to handle Gideon, who is, like, throwing them around, eating blaster shots to the face. Grogu is, like, pushing him with the Force. He's still hanging on. It's very, very tough.
Grogu needed to be a little bit more rough here with his Force use. That's my feeling.
It is only the devastating impact of the capital ship, followed by what I only imagine is a massive nuclear explosion that finally takes down Moff Gideon. But you wonder, what about our heroes? What happened to them? Well, in what can only be described as a impressive,
he was saving it for this
Force display. Grogu has kept them safe inside this Force bubble as the nuclear fires swirl all around them. The good guys win. Jason, you were saying?
Oh, no, I was just saying, I feel like they are powering and depowering Grogu throughout the series.
Very much.
You know, in the sense that, like, in season 1, he can literally freeze a mudhorn in midair that is fully charging forward. Yeah. And here he can't seem to knock Moff Gideon off
a platform,
off a ledge. You know what I mean? And that's a bit of, there's a bit of confusion for me there as to how strong is he and when does he decide to exhibit it. And obviously you're right, it takes a profound amount of force to hold them safe in a bubble while the fire rages around them. But, you know, that I was also like, this is wild what's happening.
Let me proffer a theory here. Of course, we just mentioned how instinctively Grogu was force choking folks, and his pushes certainly are quite powerful, but certainly not powerful enough to move Moff Gideon. What if Luke's whole thing was like, okay, you know, light side of the Force, it's defensive, mainly.
Yes.
So when he's strongest when he is defending the people he loves.
Because that's what he's been trained as. I just want to say, this sums up a problem for me. I have a rebellion tattoo. I love Jedi. I grew up in Star Wars, but I have issues with the Jedi culture, right? Like, and the way that they, like, train children for war, etc. But, like, this to me is a problem. You spend 2 years with one of the most famous Jedi in the world, and he basically depowers you because, like, of the right way to use the Force. This is why, I know it's not canon, but Grey Jedi, that space where you can play with both sides, I think is so powerful. I think that you are probably right, and that Luke taught Grogu to harness it for defensiveness. But I feel like protecting his dad, he still has that love for him and that power. I feel like I was expecting to see him do more, but I love to see him do a little Sue Storm.
It was very, very cool. You know, Kanan Jarrus could never. And also, sorry, R.I.P. I don't know why I said that. I'm so sorry to Kanan, actually. I apologize.
You're like,
how dare you?
How dare you? It felt bad as it came out of my mouth.
How dare you malign Caleb Doom?
I know. Sorry. But I will say one thing, like, that the bubble, like, he brings it down after 30 seconds. There's no way that you could bring it down after you'd probably be in there for like 30 minutes, right?
At least.
Way more. Way more.
The oxygen in the air would be burning them up.
The radioactive debris, everything.
I did love one of my favorite moments, like, visually, it's such a good, funny little gag, is like Bo trying to protect them with her tiny shield. And she's like, oh, and like, good for you, Bo, but it was never going to happen. No, definitely not safe. Unless Grogu's, like, force filtering the air.
I mean, it was definitely like 30 seconds. And then he was like, we can step out.
Light cruiser crashes into
10 feet away from them.
Yes, they can see it. See, that's the thing is, if they were in Moff Gideon's office, like tucked into the mountain somewhere, I'd be like, okay, the blast, they could shield themselves from the blast, but they are watching the light cruiser descend in front of them.
They could touch it. It's close.
It makes no sense that they are left not just alive, but fully unscathed.
Later on, the Armorer blesses in a new generation over at the Living Waters that includes our friend Grogu.
Was that Ragnar who she was blessing?
Yes, it was.
It definitely is, right? Yeah. And she wasn't like, sorry about your dad.
Never. Yeah, it's Ragnar, but I know both because of his helmet and also because I watch everything with closed captioning on.
And perfection.
And when he spoke, he was credited.
Because I was like, oh, I see. So they're like, well, your dad's dead, so now you're going to get adopted into the Mandalorian. This is the way. Also, sorry, this is actually from last episode, but I do need to say this because it relates to them adopting babies. What happened to the bird dragons? Because
they ate them.
They did eat them, right? One of our amazing Discord users found a screen grab of them roasting the baby bird dragon things that Bo saved when she was like, I've got foundlings. So I guess if you're tasty and you're not a humanoid,
that night that all the tribes got together and they were like, hey, we'll make you dinner. It was, they ate the babies.
It's either got to be that would be incredible. That would be so incredible. You know what would be incredible is if next season, because we all were like, you know what? Guess what? These Mandalorians are going to be riding these birds.
And the birds are going to be wearing cool helmets.
Yeah, these are going to be their mounts for when they retake Mandalore and blah, blah, blah. And wouldn't it be funny if they did do that next season?
I hope so.
But there was only 2.
Yeah. They just ate one.
They just ate the one.
I guess Ragnar should be feeling lucky that they didn't just eat him when Paz died.
So Din steps up and is like, okay, my foundling Grogu, I think, he beat Moff Gideon, saved Bo and
put him in the waters.
My lives. Yeah, let's make him a true apprentice now and baptize him in, and then in what can only be described as an ableist policy.
Very bad.
The armorer is like, well, he can't speak, so. Sorry about it.
The Death Watch creed, cyber.
Although I will say, from a positive point of view, it is also clear to me from the armorer's voice performance, an excellent voice performance, that what the armorer was trying to do was to get Din to formally adopt Grogu.
And it is also, I think, like a matter of consent. She doesn't want someone to just be brought into the Mandalorian faction who can't agree that he wants to be there. Though it's very clear that Grogu is.
I mean, the way his face falls when it's like, sorry, you can't speak. He's just like, I was like, come on, look at him.
I was like, is he gonna like do the Creed and Yoda speak? Like, is he gonna do it back? Are we gonna see the baby talk? I didn't see where it was going.
Rosie, I thought that I had because they at one point close up on him right when normally he would talk because they're saying he can't talk, he can't talk, and then they close up on him and I was like, is he about to talk? If he talks, I'm gonna fucking flip out.
Flip out. If he says
the way this is,
if he says that.
Oh my God, I'm curious what you both think. I do not want Grogu to talk. Period.
I think that. Right now, no. And I think, obviously, like Yoda was 900. So we've got potentially 50 years before.
And I was going to say, and Grogu is what now? When they say he was 50 when they got him, so now he's 52 or 53 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. So you think in the last 3 years he's advanced
that much?
No. For a being that will live to 900?
Yeah.
He's the baby. We love the baby. Also, as well, that can be something they can work up to when he inevitably shows up in the Rey movie as one of their Jedi students. Like, somewhere down the line,
to be clear, I have no problem with that.
I have
but
no
right now,
I'm fine
let's
with
keep it.
I'm fine with
Keep it the baby.
So, Grogu is rechristened Din Grogu, an official Mandalorian apprentice. Now Din and Din Jr., as part of the apprenticeship, have to travel the spaceways together as Din Djarin shows his newly adopted son, Din Jr., the ways of the Mandalorian so that he can become a full-fledged Mandalorian. And as this is happening, the mythosaur, which is slumbering below the waters, opens its eyes. There's this wonderfully emotional moment where Bo relights the Great Forge and the Mandalorians are back. Great big cheer led by Axe Woves. Sorry we ever doubted you once again.
Okay, so when the baby, just before the mythosaur wakes up, the baby looks into the water and almost like touches it with the force. Like, he knows the mythosaur's down there. There's a connection between the two, right?
He can sense the mythosaur down there, and I think that's why the mythosaur opens its eyes as if it is, I don't know, hearing or sensing or something. Yes. So should we presume? Although I guess Grogu has had has had contact with other animals, some sort of like, so that maybe he has the Force allows him to connect with this mythosaur. I did really think we would get more mythosaur.
I was surprised.
I thought that the Mandalorians being back on Mandalore, I thought we would see Bo on the mythosaur with the Darksaber fighting Gideon.
I feel like the same, and I feel like all of the chatter around the watching of the show successfully wrote a shadow version of the season.
I've been there. Disney.
That I'm very intrigued by.
Yeah.
Where the Armorer or Axe Woves are duplicitous double agents, where the mythosaur comes out and Bo-Katan gets to ride it. Like all this stuff that I'm like, yeah.
Time to team up for our fanfic.
I will also say that it's a lot probably happens off screen, obviously, but it does also seem as if either A, Bo has not really shared the mythosaur news, or B, the Mandalorians are just kind of underwhelmed about the mythosaurus back. Like, can we talk about this?
My gut says I believe the shadow version of this was at least probably kicked about, at least a bit about the mythosaur being in the final episode. Now we know that there's going to be a movie. I think you saved that for the movie. Who's going to ride the mythosaur? Is it going to be Bo? I think Grogu is rising up the mythosaur riding ranks now that he's had that kind of connection.
I agree. And you also have to figure the mythosaur has it done right. That's a very expensive vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Very, very expensive.
And it's like something that canon-wise and the amount of time that we've heard about it but never seen it, to really have the reveal is huge. And even though a finale of a big TV show like this would be a great place, I can understand why they'd want people to see that on IMAX in the most expensive way possible.
And it's honestly probably why we didn't see those birds again, is because they are completely digital. And if they're not doing something integral to what's going on, then why are we going to why burn the money on them?
Now, you could potentially take some of the Scott Lang Giant Man assets from, from
Quantumania?
From Quantumania, or from Endgame.
Okay, so I was going to say,
and reskin it for Mythosaur.
Yeah, I think that'd be really easy. That's right. No harm. Send it to
I have no idea how that works.
Okay, so what about this then? If we're talking about reusing assets, will the asset of Grogu saving them in Moff Gideon's office, is that going to be used when we first see Sue Storm? It will just be the same bubble.
Oh wow,
that's like the trade back.
That'd be great.
They are they're definitely testing out how to do the Fantastic Four powers in these movies and shows.
I will say I did sense small moments where you could kind of put your finger on a moment where it's like, okay, here's where they tried to save money. Like when Bo is leading the charge, she ignites the Darksaber, has it out. They only showed like her hand and about an inch of the handle, like they didn't, which is a weird shot, right? To not show the full sword.
That's like an Arthurian style moment with
it was
Excalibur.
Just like, hey, save us $5,000 and don't show the whole sword.
Get to go home on time today. Just do a little bit of the sword.
So then Din and Grogu go and visit our good friend Captain Teva.
Love to see him
at the tropical New Republic base.
But boy, did I want Zeb there.
I did.
I'm like, you already
when Zeb stepped out.
Where is he?
Zeb stepped out.
All I wanted, I like screamed, please let Zeb
meet
Grogu.
Dear God.
Oh my gosh.
All I wanted was for Zeb to meet Grogu in the bar.
Just give him a little like nod while the baby's like eating his snacks or something.
Yep.
So the New Republic is, of course, stoked that the Mandos took out Gideon and for free. Like, it cost them 0 credits for this. And then Mando pitches Captain on a team
Don't even get me started.
He basically says, listen, Grogu and I will hunt Imperials, right? Off the books, okay? This is not a New Republic operation, just you and me talking. You slide us some credits under the table, we'll take care of it. Okay,
we'll do the wet work.
I want to say, this
me
man,
and my child will be assassins for hire.
I just want to say, he pitches it as he says to him, I've got a baby now. I've got a son.
I've got to do something.
He's like, I can't be doing that dangerous stuff. I'm just going to become an assassin for Imperial remnants and bring my child. That is more dangerous than being a bounty hunter.
Now, I wonder if what he was saying was, I can't be doing this immoral bounty hunting where it's just like, I'm bringing everybody in. I'm bringing everybody in, droids.
Yeah,
they have different kind of aliens.
He wants the closeness and the legitimacy of the New
people
Republic.
that just like didn't pay their parking tickets. Like now, what if I just go after people who are probably bad? I mean, we're talking about Imperials.
Yeah. No, I think that's what because doesn't he say something like I can't go back to being just a bounty hunter.
Right.
It needs to matter or something like that, you know.
So and he says, listen, you can in terms of payment, which you are going to pay us because we are going to work for this, but you can give us an advance, and that advance is that IG head that my son just spotted above your bar, which is, by the way, quite horrific to just have a droid anyway. And then closing the loop on the memory chip plotline that we thought was over.
Let's give an apology to Din, because we really thought he got distracted.
We thought that they just had forgotten about the memory chip, but it's back. Back on Navarro, Greef, our good friend, High Magistrate Greef Karga, gives Mando the keys and the deed to his beautiful new
it's really the heart. I love
piece of land. And by the way, with all the Mandalorians back on Mandalore, he now has like this huge tract.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Did he get the whole land that Greef? Because that was such a weird moment in the season where they rescue or they save Navarro. The Mandalorians intercede in Navarro with the pirates. They are awarded this enormous piece of land, and they immediately depart.
They're given
They're given a home area to make themselves at home, and they immediately go to retake Mandalore. Totally fine. But when they came back, is that where Din Djarin is, or was Greef Karga like, I'm so sorry, man. After you guys left, I gave that away.
Yeah,
so I've
deal.
just got this little cabin.
Right, that was a deal for the existing Mandalorian people. I'm sure you understand. Like, I have to
take like 1,000 square feet.
I have to take some of that back. But no, I think that is all. I think that was all of their land.
Great.
I think it was.
Great.
It does look like very barren. In not a bad way, but like they're chill, they're sparse. It's just the heart and no one else.
Well, it's very much like the end of a Western.
It is
very much.
It's like very much like out on the plains. He kicks up his feet. There's even posts in front of the house too, that you would attach your horse.
And they do the
circle fade. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you that then about that. Did that ending feel to you like perhaps?
Wait, hold on. Before we get there, because we're almost there.
Oh yeah, we got to remember about IG.
So then Mando says, "Well, Greef, guess what? I have a gift for you. Check this out." And next thing we know, we see a refurbished IG-11.
First, we see the Anzellans.
The Anzellans who worked very hard on this, right?
Yeah.
And here we see a refurbished IG-11 walking up saying, "Good evening, citizens. I am IG-11, your new marshal. I am here to serve and protect the citizenry." And the crowd goes, "Wow, Greef Karga is cheering." And I just have to say, we've talked a lot about the kind of questionable politics around droids here in this world. It is very funny to me that everybody is like, "We've lobotomized another droid, folks. He will only follow orders. This droid no longer has any free will." And everybody's just like, yes.
It's especially fucked up because, like, Din literally was like, "That's my friend. That's the only droid I trust. I need his memory chip back because I trust him." And then he was like, "Nah, I don't need him, actually. You guys have him. He can just be your, like, police servant."
And he very specifically says, and I forget what the exact wording is, but IG-11 basically says, "Listen, I will just follow orders now.
Yeah.
I am not going to go and do weird things and bounty hunt on the side. I am just strictly the marshal, and it's great to see you." Big cheers from everybody. And listen, I guess until more information emerges and we know exactly what was done with IG-11, we can't really say, but it did feel a little weird.
You know what? They brought him back from the dead.
He could have been dead. Right, that's...
yeah,
that is
what
true.
I couldn't figure out was, though, like, I didn't need IG-11 to come back. Like, I wasn't... Frankly, to me, that moment where IG-11 sacrifices himself so that they can escape on the lava flow, et cetera, I loved and was such an incredibly moving.
Impactful.
Yeah.
So the idea that, now we have to bring him back, but not bring him back as the character we loved, but bring him back as a mind-wiped like automaton.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't quite get. I feel like this because it's the last beat. I feel like we're supposed to be like, yeah, my guy, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, why exactly?
It is especially weird because Din even says to Teva, he says, oh, that reminds him of someone he used to know. So he even has that emotional thing, but then they just turn him into like, it's like also, wouldn't you need a certain amount of sentience to be a marshal? That is not like a...
I mean, listen, we just watched 2 episodes of Grogu riding around in the carcass of Din's professed friend.
I'm telling you, in his corpse, We're doing comedy beats with a soundboard. Yes. No.
How great would it have been if, like, IG-11 is there, like, I'm your new marshal, welcome, thank you, people, or whatever, and Grogu's just clawing at his chest, trying to get in.
Let me in.
He just pops out of the chest, and he's like, yes, and it's Grogu.
I hope they do get him a new little mech, because he really seemed to enjoy it, and he took to it.
Love that mech.
He was very good at piloting it. And then we get to the end where, obviously a wonderful Western beat. There's so much classic Star Wars stuff here with... all the kind of thematic beats. And then here, leaning into the Western themes that have always been there present in Star Wars. We see the little home on the range. Jason mentioned the post where you would tie up your horse.
Your blurg.
Tie up your blurg.
Grogu's playing with a little frog in the creek.
Soon to be eaten,
Definitely.
I'm sure. And then Din, kicking up his feet, taking a much-needed rest and relaxation. And it felt like a hard and definitive end.
I'm telling you, that's how it felt to me.
This chapter of The Mandalorian. Who knows what comes after? What do you think comes? Jason, what do you think comes after?
Well, I think that this season, and frankly, and I love this show. I've loved spending all of this time both watching these episodes, waiting until midnight every Tuesday night and just crushing these episodes and being really engaged and delighted by so much of what they've done, confused and confounded at some of the other things that were done.
Yes.
But I definitely think that a lot of the kind of unevenness or any of the kind of stuff that people have been confused by or weren't quite tracking were part and parcel of a much different version of the show this season. This season was definitively a heavily serialized narrative.
Yes.
One thrust of a story with lots of characters. And I feel like at the end when the armorer is like, now you have to, the armorer basically says, now next season you can go on your adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
you can have
that's what
a
it
villain
is.
of the week.
And I don't think so. I think the setup is now they're looking out. We're not going to be like with them on Mandalore. We're not going to be inside of that story anymore. I think that chapter is done.
Yes.
And the next chapter will open up probably as it relates to them. My guess is Din and Grogu will be enlisted in the Ahsoka live action Rebels crew Thrawn narrative, right? They're going to somehow be sucked into that story that is the result of whatever happens in Ahsoka. That's my hope, at least.
I think that's true. So do you think, and this is for both of you, do you think we'll ever get another season called The Mandalorian? Because that's what I'm not sure of. I think we'll get Ahsoka. I think this will tie into it. But, is it going to be like Din and the baby? Is it going to be like Grogu? Is it...
I think just for marketing.
I think just for marketing.
I think just for on a Craven business level, The Mandalorian is too big a property.
Yeah.
Like comparatively, The Mandalorian is enormous and their flagship and is huge for them versus a show that I know we all just were obsessed with, Andor. My understanding is underperformed for them. So I think they will they'll make a Mandalorian show, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a season like this season at some point where a Mandalorian season is where Din and Grogu are side characters again. Or are
and you see
support
them
characters.
Rebuilding of Mandalore or something.
Yeah, or you see them inside of the Rebels crew doing something that they've signed on to do with them. They could both be, which I like, and this makes it a very creatively interesting show, which is you can tell individual stories, you can tell case of the week, monster of the week stories for a while, but then you can also make ensemble-based shows in which Din and Grogu are just part of a larger ensemble, and that I love.
Yeah.
Do we later find out that Din and Grogu were around for the big battles in the most recent Star Wars trilogy. How do they, in your mind, theorizing now, how do they explain away the lack of attendance in the big fight scenes from Grogu and Din?
I wonder if they build in some kind of story.
Because I ask because I was a little bit worried they were going to kill Din at the end of it.
Me too. No, I had the fear.
I was non-zero worried. Like
I had the fear. Just also as well, like Pedro's busy.
The comments about the comments from the showrunners about this is actually and execs about how this is the Mandalorian refers to
Bo,
now
or the
all of the
Mandalore.
Mandalorians, not just it. So I was kind of worried that
It's also notable that
get killed.
Pedro's in no live action. He's not. The helmet doesn't come off at all. And that's a first. This season is the first time because at the end of both seasons we see his face. So
I think there was a lot of people even wondering what that meant on a business level of being a leading person who doesn't have your face shown at any point in any episode of a season. So it's definitely interesting stuff. I think that they will probably do a story beat that says Grogu is the future of the Force. Grogu is the most powerful Omega level mutant, and we have to hide him from Palpatine, from everyone else. And then him and Din will be hidden somewhere off on a moon or something. And that's why they weren't there. But also, you could imagine him being kind of retroactively. It's like, he was behind a tree, like doing some Force stuff that helped someone along.
I mean, it also opens up the question to why isn't Ezra part of Rey's
big question?
Why isn't Ezra part of Rey's story? He would truly be like a senior Jedi at this point, or not Jedi, a Force user, and that's that. So, I mean, my hope is that there are very cool, very creative ways to tell those stories. Wouldn't it be? What if the reason that they're not is because Ezra and Grogu are? What if Grogu becomes like Ezra's Padawan and they go on an adventure?
I love that idea. And now that we're in this outer rim space and this wider ideas of the galaxy, there are multiple different conflicts happening. It's not just what we know from the main timeline and the main trilogies. So I think there's definitely a space. And we've been saying it's one of the best things. We all love the animated stuff. They're starting to do with these live action shows what they've always done with animation, which is expand on and add context to these moments that make you say, oh, why did that happen? Or why wasn't so-and-so there? So I think in Ahsoka especially, and probably further seasons of The Mandalorian, we will get those answers. Where was Ezra? Where was Grogu? How do these things tie in? And why weren't they a part of these stories that came after?
Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Wow. Huge. My final thoughts are, I really enjoyed it. I thought, again, this is one of my favorite shows. I would cut off my arm to be on this show. I would love to be. Star Wars is my stories. Like this is. I'm 50. I grew up on these movies from the time they were coming out in theaters, the original trilogy. These are my movies. These are my stories. This is a world that I love being inside of.
It feels like it'll happen, right?
Yeah, right. I was going to say, it feels like it's inevitable.
I mean, the amount of improv world people that have already appeared on the show is quite notable.
It is.
David Swayze, Bobby Moynihan.
What's your dream
Kevin
character?
Kevin Dorff.
If they came to you and said, who do you want to play? And you get to pick the vibe.
Oh, wow.
What would that be?
You know what I would love to play is, there are characters that I would love to play, but I would love to play someone in like The Acolyte or someone. I would like to play someone in the High Republic era or someone in this James Mangold movie, if that ever gets made.
Yeah,
I'd love to play a character who's an unknown. That is able to be defined by the performance rather than, wouldn't it be cool to be Quinlan Vos? Oh my God. Wouldn't it be cool to do Dark Disciple and be Quinlan Vos? No, it would be, but that, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
To originate a character in that world.
Wow. Wouldn't that be just awesome?
The dream.
These are my stories. This is what I love. So any time that I can spend with characters in this world and then also consuming all the podcasts and all the stuff just during the time that this season has aired. I've been so excited and having so much fun inside Star Wars. I've rewatched Rebels again.
Yeah.
And I've rewatched the last 3 seasons of Clone Wars again, just because I was having so much fun being inside Star Wars stories. So I had a great time, even though I did genuinely feel like the season was a little uneven for me.
Yeah.
My thought would be, I understand and somewhat share the criticism of being uneven. I considering the ambitions that they had, which was to kind of like tie up these final Moff Gideon threads and tie down the retaking of Mandalore kind of plot lines. I guess there was almost no way to do it without it feeling like a lumpier show, and it certainly feels like there's also in true Dave Filoni style, a kind of larger mission to tie into the most recent trilogy and shore up some of the, for lack of a better word, weak spots in the trilogy. That's it. I think my main note is that, like, I am shocked still at the power that this puppet has over me. Every time they do a one shot, a oneer of this puppet's face, every time it makes some sort of cooing sound or presses the button to say yes or no, I could watch that for 2 hours. I could just watch it cooing and making different faces. It's to the emotion that this fucking puppet carries. It is shocking.
And the emotion that it can elicit.
Yes,
exactly.
It's incredible at conveying. It's an incredible job they do emoting.
Unbelievable.
It's an incredible performance,
yes.
literally, from the puppet and the VFX operators, and it's incredible. But then it makes me, like, when Grogu is Sue storming everybody in the invisible shield, I'm like crying.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's
he's saving his mom and dad. I'm crying.
Yeah.
It's very emotional.
Really
it's great.
is. I'm grateful every day that Werner Herzog called them cowards and told them to use the puppet. Because truly, we need more puppets in our life. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think you covered it up very well. I will say I am a huge fan of the Saturday morning adventure aspect of sci-fi, of Star Wars, of the things that shaped George Lucas in making the trilogy originally. So for me, I actually enjoy the wild romp adventures and the side quests and the Plazia 15s. So it's easier for me to feel that I can sand out the unevenness because I like when it goes back to that.
Oh, one more question. Are we going to tie up the G68 loose ends and the amnesty program, the very clear neo-imperial plot that is slowly unfurling there on Coruscant, which is probably the project to create Snoke and bring back Palpatine, like, further down the road, right?
Yeah, well, do you think that, well, let me ask you this. Do you think Moff Gideon is dead?
Dead?
I wasn't sure. I thought, we know nobody really dies. We saw Darth Maul die. We saw what happened there, Spider, But I actually do think the explosion was big enough that I'm like 90% on the dead side, 10% on a, like, General Grievous situation. I feel like that's the only way he could come back.
Well, because, like, we've invested so much time in his spy network.
Yeah.
It's his spies that are inside the New Republic. It's his spies that get to Pershing in the Mind Flayer. Like, all of that stuff. If he's gone, does that spy network just go to someone else? Or, to your point, will we never see them again because we don't have to?
I think that G68 Elia, I think she is actually going to be, like, a very big connecting thread between all of these stories as basically the representative of the Imperial remnants. So if that spy network goes to anyone, I think it's her. And I think she keeps it alive. I love that performance that Katie O'Brien did. She's so nefarious and so villainous. And I
would also love to see her as a Thrawn spy.
Yes,
I would love it if Thrawn saw in her, this is someone I can use to my advantage.
That would be so cool.
And that would be great. If basically Thrawn enters and just takes over the vacuum left by Moff Gideon's death. That's interesting to
That
me,
makes a lot of sense. And also Moff was outspokenly against Thrawn and constantly presented himself as a better option or suggested there were better options. And Thrawn is a very egotistical person. So I think that taking over from Moff Gideon, who didn't survive, and also if we look at the Maul situation, that could also set up something very cool if 10 years down the line they actually wanted to bring Moff back. And it's him and Thrawn in that kind of competition.
I will say that I believe that Moff Gideon is dead only because it was, a feat of the Force, right? That Palpatine was able to take his consciousness at the moment of death and move it to, beam it over Wi-Fi to his clone. And I would assume that that is not something that Gideon has either the wherewithal to do through the Force. Certainly had not completed his project of,
and it seemed like those clones were maybe
Force
his
Gideon.
only clones,
right? His only Force experiments, anyway. And that in terms of the technology required to move his mind at the moment of death to a place, I would assume that he is not capable of doing that. That's not something that he would be able to do. So I think that he is for real dead. And I agree with you. I think that the spy network, I wonder if Thrawn takes it over at a certain point and that becomes the Snoke project.
Yeah.
Well, it was wonderful to talk Star Wars with you.
This was so fun.
Loved it. Loved every minute.
Loved it.
Up next, Comics Corner. Welcome to the Hive Mind, where we explore a topic in more detail with the help of expert guests. This week, Jason Mantzoukas tells us what he's reading. Jason, what are you reading right now? Because here's the thing. I am behind. Ever since they moved Secret Headquarters.
Me too.
I have been behind. Like, my stack is just accruing at various locations.
Dude, one of my picks was like old Silver Age Gardner Fox Justice League. So I think we can just talk about anything we're enjoying.
So I will just say off rip that I am behind. But Jason, what are you? You're such a well-read person. What are you reading right now?
I'm also behind. I will admit, and it is. As a comics reader, I'm sure you comics readers, you both understand that feeling when you look over where your comics are, and suddenly somehow there's piles of stuff,
Oh, dear,
and you're like, oh God, what is this? And it's interesting what I choose to read, what I choose to keep going with, and a lot of that tells you like what I'm loving, And so like I've been a completist on Hellboy stories from the beginning, basically. And so those are books I always read, partially because they usually come in digestible stories. Single, one shots, two shots, or four issues max tell a story in Hellboy. And so I keep up with that. I love that. What was the Cliff Chang Catwoman book that came out?
That was really cool.
Is it called Lonely City? I thought that was fantastic. I love Cliff Chang, so I thought that was just fantastic.
Was so beautiful.
Beautiful. I'm another one of the artists that I really like. Declan Shalvey has a new book out right now called, I think, Old Man. The old Man, maybe it's called. I can't remember. There's only been a couple of issues so far, and I read that, which I really liked.
Rosie, what about you? What are you reading right now?
Okay, so yesterday I'm also behind on the weekly single issues. It's hard to keep up. There's so many great comics. But yesterday, it was the 85th anniversary of Superman's first appearance and Lois Lane's first appearance. And DC released this absolutely gorgeous Lois Lane graphic novel called Girl Taking Over. It's by Ariel Jovillanos and Sarah Kuhn, who is such a brilliant writer. And together, it's just unbelievable. It's got gorgeous colors by Olivia Pacini. It's got Melanie Ujimori did the letters, which are super dynamic. And it's basically Lois Lane, and she's Asian American, and she's going to National City to start her dream internship. And it is this coming of age journalism kind of mystery, but it's so vibrant and so colorful. I love those DCYA graphic novels, and this is one of the best that they've done. And it's a great thing to read because it's 85 years of Lois Lane. So that's been a big one for me. As always, reading a lot of manga. I recently read, sticking on the DC, I recently reread Rachel Pollack's Doom Patrol run. We sadly lost Rachel recently, a really trailblazing trans creator. Her Doom Patrol run that she took over from Grant Morrison is so good, and they recently collected it for the first time. Oh, it's unbelievable. If you love Doom Patrol, if you love Grant Morrison, you got to read it. She takes it over with Richard Case, the series penciler, Stan Watts on there. And it is just so subversive and a truly great follow-up to Morrison's Doom Patrol run, which is one of the greatest of all time.
Ooh, that's great because, like, that's a Doom Patrol, a book I have almost zero knowledge of. DC in general, I'm very ignorant of. It's so much so that I would love if, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have any recommendations, I've recently watched a ton of the DC animated movies, right?
Yeah.
Which I'd only seen a couple here and there, and I just watched a whole bunch of them that were all about John Constantine.
Oh, well.
Another character that I'm woefully ignorant of. So if you have like runs or, you know, go this writer or this era or whatever, I want to hear it.
You're going to be very happy because Constantine was created by Alan Moore. So you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Swamp Thing, the brilliant space. I would say the old school Vertigo Hellblazer, which is what his story was, is one of the best places to go. They actually recently did a really incredible John Constantine YA graphic novel in that same series, which is a really good jumping on point that I adored. And it has really, really beautiful art. There's so many good ones. I love Mike Carey. He did a great Hellblazer run. So you're really blessed because John Constantine is basically
that's
all
terrific.
good stuff. It's just such a great character. I love him so much. Also, I would say, if you want to watch more John Constantine, they didn't hit the version that Matt Ryan did in Legends of Tomorrow. You can just skip to when he joins. It's like, I love all of Legends, but it's so good. And Matt is like an incredible John Constantine. And he actually ended up voicing him in some of those later movies too.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've watched none of that show.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's a joyous, queer superhero romp through space.
Oh, great.
Very, very Star Wars in that way, like villain of the week kind of.
Have you guys ever read Jonna, the Chris Samnee book?
I love that book.
That book is absolutely fantastic. An incredible all ages book that I cannot recommend, especially if you have a young person in your life who you want to read comics or who does read comics. Chris Samnee may be one of my favorite artists right now.
Chris is
incredible.
Okay, well then I'm going to actually, one of the other books I was going to recommend, which you will definitely love if you love that comic, there's this great new publisher called Saturday AM that's trying to like replicate kind of the Shonen Jump like manga magazine. They have this book called Gunhild by Fred Tornagar, and I love this book. It's like a girl, it's an all ages comic. It feels very much in that same vein, and it's about a girl who's like a 12-year-old who lives in a world of Norse gods. And it's kind of like, feels a bit like fantasy sports and a bit like, it's just a really great all ages kind of romp through this fantastical world with this really dynamic, beautiful art. It's so good. I'm a huge fan. I think that they just collected it in print recently.
I have one thing to recommend, even though I am behind, and this is an older, not older, but a recent, but it's the run is finished, and this is The Good Asian, which is now complete.
Oh, incredible book!
Incredible
book. About to be adapted too by
about
James Wan's production company.
By Pornsek Pishishtot and Alexandra Tefengi. Beautiful, gritty, pulpy art.
Stunning.
A really, really cool story about a Chinese-American detective on the trail of a killer during the era of the Chinese Exclusion Act. Just really, really great. A wonderful read, and it's a finished story. If you want to pick something up that you can just be done with definitive ending, it's available there in trade paperback, multiple volume trade paperback. Really, really great.
I'll throw out another recommendation because it's a mashup of two things that I really love, which is I'm a fan of the Kirkman Walking Dead books as they were coming out. Very into the Walking Dead. I never really converted into a TV show watcher, but I loved that comics run. But one of my favorite comics writer and artists, Tilly Walden, has done now a story, and now a second one is coming out, set in that world called Clementine.
Unbelievable.
Tilly Walden, incredible, has put out a number of truly incredible On a Sunbeam, spinning graphic novels that are just
one of the best cartoonists working at the moment, without question.
Are You Listening is another one of hers that are just really fantastic.
Yeah, I loved Clementine. It also it's got a disabled protagonist because it's Clementine from the Walking Dead games. It's amazing. It's set in Amish country, which is something I feel like I've never really seen in comics. I loved that comic so much. I actually chatted to Tilly about it at Polygon. It was just a really great interview.
Oh, cool.
Tilly was recently made the comics laureate of Vermont.
Oh, wow.
As
Whoa,
well.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, those Clementine comics are really fucking rad. And you know what? A lot of fans did not approach them in a supportive way because, as we know, some fandoms can be quite toxic. So I'd just say go out and read those books.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the
But
thing,
not- but-
unfortunately.
But Rosie, certainly not comics.
Can
no,
you
no,
imagine?
no. Unfortunately, that is the case. Let's see. Since we spent a lot of time talking about the Mandalorian in this episode, and that is, on some level inspired by the classic Wolf and Cub comics. Anytime you have a older warrior with a baby,
The baby.
it can only be inspired by Wolf and Cub. Any particular favorite Wolf and Cub stories for either of you, Rosie?
Well, I would say if you haven't read it, go and read Lone Wolf and Cub. Dark Horse has multiple collections of them. It's like one of the most influential comics ever made. The writer is Kazu Koike, and then the artist was Gosai Kojima. And these are just some of the most astonishingly brilliant comics. They have played a huge influence. Frank Miller, for example, no matter how you feel about him, that is someone who deeply took from those comics. I would say that's the place to go, especially as we're about to watch, Grogu and Din go on this journey. They became assassins this episode. So it's so I would say the classic Lone Wolf and Cub, there's so many collections. They're brilliant. You can probably get them from the library. It's this beautiful samurai story, one of the most famous manga of all time. Also, I'll put out there just any Wolverine story where he's with a kid. Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past.
To me, Wolverine is the ultimate good Lone Wolf and Cub kind of mainstream.
He really as a reader at the time too, Wolverine really became one of my favorites when he would get paired with Jubilee.
Exactly.
When they would go on an adventure together. That's the balance that you want,
I really hope they keep that whoever they cast as Wolverine.
Same.
By the way, now I'm like, are they going to cast Pedro as Wolverine? Is that happening? Because this really feels like they're setting him up for it. But yeah, I hope they keep that because I think that's one of my favorite Western iterations in comics is Wolverine as the kind of he's the cranky dad.
Yeah.
And it's like he has to look after all these annoying mutant kids and it's like he doesn't want to do it but he really loves to do it, but he can still kill you with his adamantium claws.
That's why one of my favorite recent comics, run is over now, but Wolverine and the X-Men, when Wolverine was basically the headmaster of the school for a period of time.
It was great.
It was great. So fun because it was
fun.
That was like prime cranky dad in charge of all these preteen and teenage kids who were just like, you old man, you fucking old timer.
He's refereeing the baseball games.
It was so fun. Absolutely fun. Any final Lone Wolf and Cub comics, Jason?
I'm having trouble coming up with other comics because I'm stuck on True Grit falls into that's a great Lone Wolf and Cub type story.
Yeah.
The Sam Mendes movie, what's the movie with Tom Hanks where he's got his son?
Road to Perdition.
Thank you.
Road to Perdition, based on a comic.
Based on a comic.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I never read it though.
Yeah.
I didn't process it that way. But you're right.
You'll be okay with it.
Well-
Lone Wolf and Cub, I will also say, brilliant movies. So if you want more of that, to see where that influence came from, you can really get to enjoy that kind of stuff.
It really is. It's the Batman and Robin.
Exactly.
When they've really leaned into it, Frank Miller's done it. Like when they really lean into it, the Batman and Robin relationship, when Robin especially isn't Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne is not a Cub.
No, Damian Wayne's a stone cold killer.
He's a murderer.
He's a fucking assassin.
You're right. The Dark Knight Returns, like Carrie Kelly. I feel
Exactly,
like
that's what I was
very
thinking.
Lone Wolf
Yes.
and Cub, and Frank
Right,
was
because
hugely
he
influenced by
kind
these.
of can't shake her. She is, there is an element of it. There's a reluctant dad element to that I think is part and parcel of this. It's not his child. He just has to
Deal
care
with
of
it,
this.
yeah.
Yes.
No, I love that. Also, I went, when the Batman came out, I went to Warner Brothers and I saw it, and Robert Pattinson was there. And he said something that I've never forgotten, where somebody was like, would you do a Robin? And he was like, only if only if Robin is like 11. And I want to see it so badly because I'm like, that is how weird it needs to be. And that is that Lone Wolf and Cub thing. Like, why do you have a child with you? Just like we ask, why is Din taking the baby everywhere?
Yeah, I would love that.
It would be
I
so
think that
good.
would be rad and so upsetting in a way that
Devastating.
in a way that I feel like they're interested in.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that Matt Reeves Batman universe is
Very
interested
upset,
in him making mistakes and him taking L's.
Yeah,
and that
many.
would certainly be one,
Well, Jason, it's been so delightful to have you on the program.
Thrilled to be.
Yeah, such a wonder.
Please
Thank
come
you.
back. Anything to
Yes.
plug?
Oh, I will plug. Well, you were kind enough to mention the How Did This Get Made podcast
A wonderful
that I do.
podcast.
Just so much fun.
Oh, thanks. With Paul Scheer and June Diane Raphael, where we talk about terrible movies and subject ourselves to watching them. It's really, it's been going on for 14 or 13 years, and it's deeply upsetting. I'll also throw out a recommendation for something that I think you're, especially fans of this show, will like, which is I'm one of the voices on Star Trek Prodigy.
Yes.
Which is a fantastic animated show that is geared towards young people. It's the first Star Trek story that takes place primarily with young adults. It's a group. It's a found family. It's a group of kids who are basically trapped on a slave planet where they manage to steal a ship and escape and they go on like truly just like adventures all throughout Star Trek lore and canon, and it's fantastic.
And Janeway supremacy. This
I
is
was
the
just gonna
Voyager
say.
Janeway show. Like, I could not say no to that.
It really is so fun and so beautiful, and it feels very, and I hope this is okay to say, but it to me feels very similar to a Clone Wars or a Rebels in the sense of
I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah, it is young protagonists and it is adventure based, and it's a blast. And I play, as always, a 16-year-old, which is
Typecasting.
typecast again.
Yet again.
But please, everybody, watch Star Trek Prodigy. Show it to your kids. It's incredible, hard Star Trek sci-fi. It's a blast. And, if you don't mind, it's on Paramount Plus. Set it up to autoplay the whole series.
Yeah, there you go.
Just do it while you're working,
Just run it
while you're
through.
chilling, cooking.
I'd love that completion rate, guys. I'd love it.
Hey.
Thank you so much, Jason.
In today's Nerd Out, where you tell us what you love and why, or a theory you're excited to share, Marcus pitches us on the Star Wars sequel trilogies in the wake of Star Wars Celebration 2023, and specifically on the fantastic Daisy Ridley as Rey.
Hey, Jason and Rosie. First time, long time. This week on the Nerd Out, I'm pitching a small series of independent films better known as the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Ever heard of it? I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan who grew up with the prequels and never, ever expected we would get a sequel trilogy, but I always dreamed of one. So to get a trilogy starring an actress as talented as Daisy Ridley was a dream fulfilled. Look, the trilogy is not perfect, and its flaws are often over-exaggerated because of the perverse incentives of social media, but that's a nerd out for another time. Rey is, quite simply, one of the most compelling characters in all of Star Wars, and that's a testament to Daisy Ridley's incredible performances. As amazing as it was to see Han, Leia, and Luke on screen once more, it's Rey whose arc the trilogy is rightfully centered upon, and she is more than up for shouldering that responsibility. The raucous reaction in London when Lucasfilm announced Ridley was returning to the role is only a small testament to that fact. With the rise of Skywalker in the rearview mirror and the new Jedi Order on the horizon, there's really no better time to dive deep into Rey's arc with fresh eyes, unburdened by theories about her lineage and poisonous online discourse. Look, I can't wait to see her pass on what she has learned, not only from her predecessors, but her sequel trilogy peers, to a new generation. After all, the Force is about much more than lifting rocks.
Thanks, Marcus. If you have theories or passions that you want to share, hit us up at xray@crooked.com. Instructions as always in the show notes. And we also wanted to thank everyone for sending so many brilliant Mandalorian fan theories in. We love featuring a bunch on the pod and reading them over email. Apologies for not being able to include them all, but thank you for sending them and keep them coming.
That's it for us. A big thank you to Jason Mantzoukas. Rosie, plugs.
Read all those great comics that we talked about on the old podcast. Also, remember that May 6th is Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
That's a really special day where you can go to your local comic shop and you can get free comics. I will be doing a signing at Jeffrey's Comics, a wonderful comic shop that I love in the South Bay with a bunch of other Godzilla fans and cool, rad local creators. So come and visit us there. And as always, you can find me here twice a week doing this rad podcast.
May 19th on Amazon Prime / Amazon Freevee. Watch Primo. May 19th. Just search Primo Shea TV show in your Amazon Prime box, and the program will come up. Hit the plus symbol to add it to your watch list, and you're good to go. And then you just log on May 19th and you watch it. Quick housekeeping note. X-Ray Vision will be taking both episodes off next week for a little break, a little R&R. That means no new episodes of the pod on Wednesday, April 26th or Friday, April 28th. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming Wednesday, May 3rd.
And if you miss us and you want to watch old episodes or watch new episodes, subscribe on YouTube where you can watch full episodes of our show. Plus, follow us at XRVPod on Twitter and check out the Discord to meet and hang with tons of amazing fans, listeners, rad people who love rad stuff, and me and Jason.
5-star ratings, 5-star reviews. We need them. We got to have
five.
them. You got to give them to us. Here's one from Johnny Blaz. Fantastic. Jason and Rosie are very well researched and hilarious. Love this podcast. Their love of comics has introduced me and through me, my children, to the wonderful world of comics. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Johnny
That's the best
Blaz.
news. Read comics. We love that.
See you next time.
Bye.